Welcome to Remotely Interested, the podcast where we talk remote working, work life in general, and top tips to successfully work from anywhere. Today we'll hear from Tom Armstrong, a data and analytics lead based in Manchester. His experience offers us an interesting insight into remote working within the tech industry. Tom has significant experience working remotely, including several years spent working from northern Thailand for a UK company. Tom, welcome to the Remotely Interested podcast.
Hi Mary, nice to...
Hi Tom, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Excellent, yeah, good, thank you. And thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest today. This is really great.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's jump straight in. I want to hear about when remote working first became a feature in your job, when and how it's still a feature today.
Yeah, COVID, probably the same as a lot of people, is I was living and working abroad and came back during COVID. Took a new job in the UK on the first week of lockdown, so my interview was on a video call, and I started. I never met them. I picked up a laptop from a locked box outside an office, and spent 6 months never meeting a single person in the company.
Yeah.
At which point they started to talk about the possibility of staying remote, and when lockdown finally finished, the possibility of staying remote. So I took that chance to move back to Thailand, and they allowed me to take the work remotely back. They since returned to the office as a hybrid company, but I spent 3 years working fully remote from Asia.
Okay.
Came back to the UK, now working hybrid, but with basically one day in the office some weeks, and the option to be working from anywhere on the globe for a couple of months each year. So it's quite a remote work still.
Fantastic. Yeah. It's quite interesting that even before COVID then, even though you're working in technology, it wasn't a remote role before. Is that correct?
Yeah, it wasn't in the office 100% in place role. It was made remote by COVID lockdowns.
Okay.
The company that I was working with at the time recognised that they can work remotely quite effectively, and now allow a hybrid role of that.
That's really interesting then, how it, in a way, the COVID pandemic lockdown has had an influence even on technological industries.
Yeah, it's there's not many tech companies now that are asking for fully in the office. I think there's not many tech workers who are accepting working in the office all
Okay.
the time is the cause of that. That businesses seem to want back in, but the staff they don't want to accept that. So there's
Yeah.
still a lot of hybrid. After COVID, they actually relocated the office, and anyone who worked for the company before the relocation was offered to stay fully remote. So there's about 30% of the business of the staff are currently completely remote,
Okay.
even though they live in the same city.
Yeah. And then everybody else, different forms of hybrid, different
Yeah,
schedules.
no, most people 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 days in the office. I have one.
Yeah. So you're in the office once a week.
Once a week, and 2 months where I can work from anywhere without any questions.
Fantastic. That's such a good strategy. And I was talking to somebody else about the fact that they're working for a global international company, and yet these initiatives, these policies now are implemented as a normal part, of the workforce opportunities. I think that's really good that you can be fully employed somewhere and have all the benefits of being an employee. There's pros and cons, employee, freelance, but all the benefits of being an employee and
Yeah.
still have that opportunity to work from anywhere around the world. That's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And it has benefits, especially in tech. There's benefits, I think, to companies, because there's so many times you have to work out of hours or work at night when the systems are quiet. Actually, it makes it harder to refuse to do that, because normally you'd have, well, I've got to come into the office at midnight and stay over. I think there's benefits. It makes it easier for those projects. It makes it easier for the company to find people to do those as well.
Okay,
Definitely,
great.
there's positives all around.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are benefits that are specific, you would say, to the tech industry as well, to
Yeah.
the role that you have. Can you think of any other general benefits, even social or?
Yeah. Um, it's got so many benefits. I save hundreds of pounds a month not having to put fuel in the car
Yeah.
and not having to buy lunches, which is plus and negative to the economy. It's good for my wallet. I get up in the morning, I can do some exercise or some reading or what I want, and then start work at 8 o'clock and still be home by 4 o'clock because I got a new baby recently, so I'm managing not to spend the first year of its life with me sat in a car.
Exactly.
I can
Yeah.
help with him in the morning. I can see him, play with him in the evening. If I'm needed at lunchtimes, I can take him and give my wife a break. So there's benefits there, family wise.
Yeah.
You save so much time. I think sometimes you can get the job done better as well. You don't get the interruptions of someone just walking past your desk. They see you and go, "Oh, Tom. Oh, while I'm here, I'll just throw this something that didn't matter or a question that really they didn't have to ask." And interruptions are reduced. Um, it's I think it's not always easy. You have to have the right mindset to work remotely. And if you don't have a disciplined mindset yourself, then you can end up doing laundry and cooking and watching telly and all the rest. But if you've got a good focused mindset, a good place to work, remote work is far more productive and effective.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's such a good point that you mentioned earlier about saving money, but also saving money on food and having the time to exercise, because remote working actually can allow us to be a bit more healthy in our approach
Yeah.
because we have that extra time, because we're eating meals that we've prepared ourselves instead of buying something overpriced and plastic near the office.
It boosts creativity because if I go in the office, I set off when traffic dictates it's best to leave and set off. I'll make sure I've left by a certain time before the traffic builds up. Whereas if I work from home, I've had a rough night with the baby and I want to lie in, it's not a problem starting at 9:30 or 10 and working till later.
Yeah.
I'm more engaged, I'm more creative, I find better solutions to problems than if I forced myself still to get up at 6 and get in the car and be in the office for 7 and be half asleep and running on caffeine. So I think there's a lot of benefits. It's yeah, far better for your work mentality, but also for your own well-being.
Absolutely. And that's great that the way you actually feel and your circumstances are what dictates the way you plan your day, rather than something arbitrary like the traffic on the streets or whether there's been an accident or whatever. So it seems a lot more natural and a lot more in keeping with how you are as a worker. The point about fewer interruptions as well, I think, is really important, because that's the paradox of certain companies who are insisting that their workforce come back to the office, because in their minds, they think people will be more productive in person. But I completely agree with you that there are a lot of interruptions that arise when you're in an office, a lot of unnecessary chat, and it's difficult even sometimes to refuse those conversations because it's important to bond with your colleagues as well. But
Yeah,
finding that balance can be tricky.
yeah,
So when you're remote, it is easier to put that distance in place so that you can focus on your work.
yeah, definitely.
So those are the positives. We could go on all day. You've already touched on the negatives a little bit. So I want to talk about how we could overcome some of the negative aspects of remote working. You've talked about the importance of having the right mindset, of being disciplined. Can you think of anything else that is a bit tricky when you're working remotely?
Yeah, and some of it comes back to the positive of it. We said you get less interruptions and you don't have all of the same social bonding happening. You're not distracted as many things, but that can be a negative as well because you can end up quite isolated. And
Yeah.
video chats are great, but they'll never replace meeting someone and talking. And the, a lot of creativity comes out, or especially I find in my work when I'll sit and I'll have a problem or a task and I'm trying to create a solution. But
Yeah.
then if on the day I'm in the office, I quite often find you'll be chatting to someone at the coffee machine or you'll be having lunch and chatting and you'll mention, oh, I'm struggling with this or I don't know how to. And they're, oh, I did something similar. And you end up with informal chats give you the inspiration or perhaps you find someone who can give support or you can delegate some work to. you wouldn't do in a formal meeting or on a video chat. So I think there is a positive to having that bonding, that interaction that is difficult to replicate just in emails and text chat. Not impossible.
No.
And there's things you can do. I find having a camera on when I have a video call, even for something mundane and simple, is as a rule, my camera will be on.
Yeah.
And quite often I'm talking to a black screen, but I find that if they have their camera on, you end up talking for a little bit longer, you end up a little bit more relaxed, you end up picking up on whether they're happy with the subject, whether they're confused, if they understand, don't understand. You get a much richer communication. And I find that some of my colleagues you chat to, we actually end up with very good relationships. I've only ever met them on video, some of the 100% remote guys. There's a team in Brazil and a couple of guys in New Zealand. I've only ever met them online, and we actually have a really good working relationship where we'll call and just chat and make small talk while we're working sometimes. And there's other people I see in the office still, but when we chat, it's wooden, it's difficult, it's very formal. So I think it depends on personality that you have to have a good mix of people who are comfortable opening up and talking over a video. I think so you can overcome it, but
Yeah.
you need the right personalities at both ends.
Yeah. Okay. And that's really interesting because you're saying that it's not actually about geographical location, it's about attitude and personality that can build those bonds. So you feel closer with some of your colleagues in New Zealand than you do with some you meet in the office in Manchester. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's personality. It's comfort to be a personality that can open up and have a relationship like that over technology.
Yeah.
So there might be someone who you can have that relationship with in person, and when you ring them, it still wouldn't. But if you've got the right personalities and comfort with technology, you can still have that and overcome that.
And I guess it's like anything in any working context, and remote working is often referred to as a new way of working.
Yeah.
You have to develop new skills, new strategies in order to keep up.
Yeah.
So the challenges that arise from remote working are overcomable.
Yeah.
Just like any challenge to do with anything to do with work, it's just about making the effort to develop those skills, develop those qualities so that it can work.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think there's some other challenges are I think that collaborative working when you're brainstorming, when you're trying to come up with solutions, creative solutions to problems. And sometimes you can't beat a whiteboard and two people with a pen each, and you can just scribble over and rub it. There's lots of good tools online to replace that. Sometimes you can't beat the ease of just using your hand to wipe it out and then rewrite something new. And that's very hard to overcome. I find the best way to overcome that is having small meetings and really picking out who needs to be in a meeting. And it's quite easy. Some people clearly, when they cut up a meeting and they just go down the invite list and go, oh, possibly him, possibly, and they just tick 15 people, and you end up crammed in a tiny room. And it's all right, but a video chat, it's far too many. And having very
Yeah.
selective who really can bring value adds to that, and keeping them really small sort of overcome some of that challenge of working together.
I like that idea of the importance of being able just to wipe out ideas that you're not moving with quickly. I guess it's almost a kind of dramatic, definitive message to everybody that you're not going with that particular idea. Whereas if it's in a chat, I guess every comment is treated equally. Are you saying that it's difficult to sometimes get across what's more important than other ideas?
I think it's we'll quite often in my work we'll design up a process, so you end up sketching out a process and you've got a flow chart you're sketching it out on a nice whiteboard, and well, that section of it there we don't need or needs to change, so you just rub it out and you replace it with what you need. Whereas you're using something like a digital whiteboard and you try, well, now I'll go find my eraser when I need to draw a new text box, and it's I've got the wrong font or it's too big. And it's not as easy as just change quick, carry on the thing. It's like a big interruption to a process. It's an interruption to your thought flow. So those sort of creative processes get interrupted by technology.
Right.
But I think that's the hardest, I think, to overcome, that I find, is that fluidity of being creative gets interrupted with technology, and that's very difficult to overcome.
Okay.
Apart from practice with the technology, but one person who struggles with it and that interruption's back in. It's one reason why I do enjoy the 1 day a week collaboration days, where we have opportunity on a Thursday to sit and do those bits.
Right. Yeah.
But then still have the rest of the week where you go, no, now I'm in my zone, I'm focusing, I've not got all of that going on.
Okay. I know it sounds like a good balance. And like you say, keeping meetings small,
Yeah.
that suits everybody as well, because nobody wants to be on a meeting that they don't think they really need to be at, so let's save time, let's be efficient.
Yeah.
Keeping meetings small, and then using those moments when you are together to brainstorm in person and not let the technology get in the way.
Yeah.
Of course, the third option is that the technology moves on and that we get apps that work that much better. And I'm sure that's coming.
And there are better and better tools. Sometimes it's a case of looking for other tools than, not just using PowerPoint and Paint, but looking and seeing what tools there are. And maybe, companies are saving money by people working remotely. My observation is, although they're paying less rent for smaller offices, they're paying for less resources in the office, they're paying less power and bill. I've not noticed companies really investing in technologies to assist in remote working, apart from you've got Teams, you've got Zoom, some of the other tools we want to use. They say, oh no, we're not spending the money, but you think, well, if we all came into the office and drew on whiteboard, you'd actually have to pay a lot more money.
Yeah.
And you'd lose a lot of members of staff, and you'd have to be recruiting from a smaller area when you've got a smaller talent pool.
Yeah.
So I think there's a discrepancy there, that you need the management and the senior management to be investing in some of those tools that are being released as well.
Excellent. Perhaps that's to come.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So you've already touched on this a little bit about the personality traits that help working collaboratively with a team remotely. Yeah. Do you want to talk a bit more about that, and perhaps experiences that you've had that mean that somebody stands out as somebody you really want to work with again remotely, and perhaps somebody else stands out as somebody who's not perhaps suited to that way of working?
Yeah. I think people who have a reliable routine, when you work remotely, you're working from home. I manage a team, and sometimes it's hard to know if one of them's set to away quite often.
Right.
It's hard to know really what they're doing. You have to manage them by extending trust, and I think that's the only way. You can't manage the same way as you do it in an office, and you have to show a bit of trust that, well, perhaps they're away, they've got some interruption, but they're still going to get stuff done. If you see that sort of area, you think, I'm not sure you're there, or you ring and there's no answer, they call back 5 minutes later, or you send a chat and they don't read it, and you think, where are you? You've got this lurking in the back of your mind. And they might be producing fine work, and you actually have not got an issue with the stuff they're doing, but you still end up doubting and wondering how much are they actually putting in, and is there an unbalance here of what people are contributing. And that leads to quite a negative viewpoint on a person and gives you a bit of possibly unfair bias. It might be that they're so focused on their work they've not seen your pop-up come up.
Yeah.
In the same way, in an office, someone might have the headphones in and look really busy. You go, well, I won't interrupt them. I'll wait till I see them later on. But when they're at home, you don't see that. So you're trying to message and they're actually really focused. And I'm thinking they're skiving. So that's a difficult, because you don't have the full information. I think people who are responsive and at least acknowledge those messages, even if I'll be with you soon, or they use the status as well, even when they use a video and they open their video and you can see that they're sat on there working, they're not on a bus somewhere down, that really helps to build that relationship and trust with people.
Yeah. That idea of trust, I think, is very important as well, because you can't be seen by your line manager.
Yeah.
You have to make that extra effort to build that trust, to be available, be responsive. Yeah.
And it helps if whoever's managing you, you feel they trust you, because there's equally where you. I feel great in my role. I know my manager trusts me. I know he just work. He doesn't track where I am, what I am, if I've had a longer lunch break or something, but then work late in the evening. Or
Yeah.
he doesn't micromanage, and it's great. But I know other people who say their managers are like checking up on them, and they feel not trusted, so they then feel paranoid. They actually spend more time trying to look busy than being busy.
Yeah.
And you can actually, if that trust isn't reciprocated, you can end up becoming less productive, less useful, more stressed, because you're trying to present an image of yourself rather than getting on with what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah. Super interesting. So that trust needs to work both ways.
Yeah.
And just like in a traditional office environment, it would be a shame that you're starting to kind of try to look busy rather than actually being busy because of the fear of the eyes on you, or
Yeah.
in a remote context, the fear of your manager checking up on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you know, Tom, this is the Remotely Interested podcast about remote working, work life in general, and top tips to successfully work from anywhere. So you've already provided plenty of information that falls under these categories, so thanks very much. Now we're going to use a strategy to learn a bit more about you and about your working practice. Now, I know you're somebody that works in technology, so I'm sure you'll be really impressed with the way we're going to go about this. Okay, so we've reached for the Mosaic Gold plate here.
This
And
is high tech.
I knew you'd be impressed.
Am I reaching for the camera? Do I have to take one?
Oh, do you know, I don't think the technology is there for that yet. Oh, but when it is, I'll invite you back and we'll do it again.
Just set me up. I could have had some pre-folded and then just taken a piece of
Oh,
paper.
hey, it's not too late. We can edit it in. So I'm going to randomly select one of these questions.
Tension's killing me.
Okay. If you could do any job that you haven't done before, just for one day, what would it be and why?
Oh, I would be driving some sort of probably a pilot, or maybe one of the big rigs in America. Um, I don't know why. I just always want to try it.
Okay.
I would love that experience. Having something with that much power behind it, being in control of it, having to be so precise, having the responsibility. It also looks quite good fun. I imagine as a job to do for a long time, I'd probably get really bored driving a lorry and just sat there. But I'd quite like the challenge of doing that for a day. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Excellent. You didn't even pause, Tom. You
That's
went
it.
there
Yeah,
instantly.
yeah.
Excellent.
As I go to sleep each night.
And I think, like you say, doing certain jobs, it'd be great to do for one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of jobs would be good for a day just to try them.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. So, as a data lead based up in Manchester, UK, with plenty of experience working remotely, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they?
Yeah, they can follow my LinkedIn page. So if you put a link on my LinkedIn page under your podcast,
Thank you. Will do.
message me on there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tom. This has been a great chat, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
So Tom's perspective was interesting. We've seen how remote working has quickly become a key feature within the tech industry. We've seen that the advantages of working remotely are numerous, including the opportunity to spend more time with our families. The fact that working remotely can sometimes serve as a boost to our creativity because we're able to work at times that suit us better. And working geographically away from our teams can sometimes be an advantage in order to avoid unnecessary interruptions. We saw how it's important, nonetheless, to adapt, to develop the right qualities in order to build the all-important social connections with our colleagues, but from a distance. We've seen that when we're working collaboratively, we do need to use online tools effectively in order to get the most out of remote meetings. And we saw how important it is to build that two-way trust, to have a professional and organised approach, and to be reactive when communicating with our colleagues. So, if you're even remotely interested in remote working, I'll see you next time.